So where annuities come into play is with income, guaranteed income, which is what every retiree really needs, is a paycheck after they're no longer getting a paycheck. And that's where annuities can come in. And I think with both of these concepts, where it really relates is protecting or insulating those savings from really 5 things that I refer to that can eat away at it.
Life's Third Act is a podcast dedicated to helping you get the most out of your retirement. Sponsored by TuckerAllen, Attorney-CPA Joe Cordell features guests each week to discuss prominent topics for those over 55. Here's Attorney-CPA Joe Cordell.
Welcome to another episode of Life's Third Act. I think it's fitting that as we start out the year that we talk a little bit about the subject of money. Money is always on people's mind to some extent, and we wanted to turn to an expert on this subject who works a lot with older people, not exclusively with people who are above 60, for example. I can say older because I fall in that category.
There you go. I'm getting there.
But does a lot of that, does a lot of financial planning. And we wanted to talk about some of the things that you might be able to do here at the beginning of the year that can make a big difference in the years to come, not just in 2023. So this guest you may have heard of. Do you want to make a proper introduction of John?
I would love to. We have J-Ensley with us, and as Joe said, he's a financial planner and the founder of J-Ensley Financial of Vancouver, Washington. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, John, your story is really interesting. You started out in the corporate world, and I want you to give us, kind of a play-by-play about how that all evolved in you launching your company. And it had to do with the financial crisis of 2008?
Yeah, exactly. So my background prior to launching my practice was in industrial sales. I was a regional salesperson for a large industrial distributor, but I started developing a subdivision and some spec homes in about 2005. And so we had the property platted out and the lots divided out and had started building the first spec home. We're maybe halfway through it as we got into late 2008.
Uh-oh.
We all know what happened there.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can probably guess what happened at that point.
Strong roots are essential for a healthy tree, especially your family tree. That's why you work hard to take care of your family every day. At TuckerAllen, we know that taking care of your family means planning for the future. Our team provides personalized estate planning to help you protect your family, your legacy, and your future. From wills and trusts to long-term care and estate planning, count on TuckerAllen, personalized estate planning made simple.
So a lot of chaos ensued from that point forward, and the prices fell through the floor. I couldn't have given the lots away if I wanted to, and trying to get that first home down, or that first home done and built, we got ourselves leveraged pretty heavily. And so the whole thing really kind of imploded by 2009. So fortunately, we did get that first home finished, and we were able to get it sold off at much less than we had originally anticipated. Of course, when I started the project, I had all these as-if appraisals on what these lots with homes on them would be worth. And it was, fun and exciting and whatnot. And of course, that all just disintegrated.
Evaporated, yeah.
Yep, disintegrated. So we got somewhat extricated from that situation without too much collateral damage, other than the fact that I really walked away from all that with nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. I really just was able to clear the air, get the vendors paid and the debt paid off.
Well, that's the story. That's the story of a lot of successful real estate developers. But the lesson that you got from this is interesting. Rather than continue along that road of which you had obtained this great education, albeit very expensive and painful.
Yeah.
But you decided to go, rather than push on in that field, you decided to pivot.
Somewhat, yes. I always refer to that period in time as my big wake up call, not just financially, but in my life, right? Because as a result of all this chaos, there came a divorce, and there are teenage kids in a divorce, and just a lot of chaos in a lot of areas. And I just had this moment where I suddenly, like the blinders lifted, and just realized how ignorant and unaware I was on so many levels. And I always say that story isn't about the financial crash or the banks who caused it, a lot of it, or any of that. I'm not a victim of circumstance. I'm a victim of my own ignorance at that point in my life. And fortunately, that wake-up call caused me to kind of go on this journey of self-discovery. And I started reading everything I could get my hands on, and going to seminars and online programs at that point, and blogs, and just anything I could read or study or attend to try and fill in the gaps that I felt like I clearly wasn't understanding how things worked.
And then is that when you became a financial planner, or were you considered one before?
No, I was not considered one before. So as a result of all of the reading and the studying and so forth, I came across a couple of concepts in all of that that had to do with using specially structured life insurance, annuities, things of that nature. And I wound up studying that concept even more, and eventually going down that path myself and setting up these specially structured policies and using them. And I just got super passionate about it. And I felt like there was very little information out there. A lot of financial professionals are not talking about some of these things. And so I decided to make a career change. And I pursued licensing first, got licensed, and then some additional training. And by 2012, I launched my practice, J-Ensley Financial.
Wow.
So your training and certifications, what you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So life insurance is where I started. So I got life insurance licensed in the state of Washington, and then other states as I began to expand. And then had some specific training with the infinite banking concept, bank on yourself concept, along those lines. And that specific training, a few years into practicing, I started pursuing additional education and ultimately finished the Chartered Financial Consultant program through the American College of Financial Services. I also, even though I didn't necessarily need to, I passed the Series 65 exam for the investment advisor's law examination. So just continue to expand the education and the learning, both formally, and I'm an avid reader, so I continue to dig into information.
So you made this decision at some point to launch into your own practice. Mm-hmm. How did that take place?
So as I mentioned, I got very passionate about these concepts. The infinite banking concept is probably the most common term for it, although that's more of a marketing term, and using life insurance in unique ways and life insurance products. So my passion was around sharing those ideas with other people, because I just didn't see a lot of financial advisors out there that even knew what some of those things were themselves. And so seeing how it kind of worked in my own life, I just decided, you know what, it's time to make a career change. So pursued the training, quit the job, and jumped right in.
But you started your own practice rather than, I notice you have your own company.
J-Ensley.
Yep, J-Ensley. Mm-hmm. So rather than simply take a job, you doing what you describe, with a financial planning company or firm, mm-hmm. you launched your own gig.
Correct. I've always been pretty entrepreneurial in mind. So that just made sense to me to launch my own thing.
John, I've got to ask you, you seem very content in this new career choice. Mm-hmm. Do you ever think, oh, darn, I wish I would have done this years ago when I was young? Are you happy that, you had that experience with the corporate world and perhaps it helped you in your current career?
Absolutely. So no, I don't wish I would have done this years earlier. I think the experiences I had and even the painful ones, probably mostly the painful ones, give me a perspective that I can help clients in a way I wouldn't have been able to without that experience. So I'm grateful for that whole experience of 2008 to 2011 or so. It kind of, the meat grinder of life kind of taught me a lot and toughened me up a little more. And that's all good stuff.
So talk a little bit about then, what are these things that you discovered that you think are not known by many people and should be regarding investments?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of people really undervalue what they can do with life insurance products, be that life insurance policies or annuities. There's obviously the primary purpose of them, which is insurance, to insure against the death of a loved one or to insure an income. But I think what is not educated is how that can play into the savings scenario, how we can amass liquid cash that we can use and leverage in our life in all kinds of different ways using insurance contracts if they're structured correctly.
So what can you accomplish, though, by doing that? Be more specific. Kind of give somebody an example of how that might be beneficial.
Absolutely. So I think let's talk about saving, right? How important is saving to the planning process, right? Living on less than what you earn, putting a portion away, it's super important. And I think too often I see prospective clients who are almost backwards. They have significant retirement plan balances, but not enough cash to cover emergencies, to cover income over the short term, those kinds of things. So using these tools, I think it makes sense to build up a pool of liquid accessible cash that can cover those kinds of short-term needs, but still be leveraged long-term towards that retirement scenario. And then in addition to that, that liquid cash should be built up to a point where you can then use it to start making investments. I think there's a process to it rather than, I think a lot of people are just throwing mud on the wall and seeing what sticks.
So, and this might be through the cash value of a permanent policy. And then it would be perhaps, is it universal life that gives you the opportunity to choose your investments? Talk about the type of policies you're talking about.
So I specifically use whole life contracts. They're structured with some riders that cause them to accumulate cash value at a rapid pace as compared to a conventionally designed whole life policy. I don't usually approach universal life for a number of reasons. So we pretty much focus on whole life.
And so this policy, though, you mentioned an annuity. How does annuity play a role in that?
So it's a separate thing from the policy. So where annuities come into play is with income, guaranteed income, which is what every retiree really needs. Is a paycheck after they're no longer getting a paycheck. And that's where annuities can come in. And I think with both of these concepts, where it really relates is protecting or insulating those savings from really 5 things that I refer to that can eat away at it. And it's taxes, fees, crashes or deflation, inflation, of course, and then the 5th one is debt interest. So we try to design plans that minimize or eliminate the effect of those 5 categories so that people can keep more of their nest egg.
So, but do people have the ability, though, to control any of their investments through the whole life policy that you're suggesting? Normally that wouldn't be included, would it?
No, in terms of selecting different sub accounts and things like that, that's a variable or universal life concept. So whole life, the way I describe this is the whole life policy designed the right way to rapidly accumulate cash value. It isn't really you can't compare it as an investment. It's the thing you use to build up cash to then use to invest.
But
it's not the investment itself.
Okay, and let me see if, and you probably will agree with this, but you think though that the whole life vehicle makes most sense though for somebody who already has a use for the life insurance component, and then in addition they get these other benefits. You would agree with that, or would you?
Absolutely, for sure.
Okay.
If you're going to buy life insurance anyway, you might as well buy a properly designed policy that will gain you the living benefits as well.
So sometimes annuities get beat up a little bit, and I know that there are people who have strong opinions on the subject on both sides.
Sure.
So can you talk a little bit about some criticisms that you might have heard about annuities, and then what your comment would be or your response would be?
So the common criticisms about annuities, and first of all, there's a bunch of different kinds of annuities, right? We have fixed annuities and fixed index annuities and variable annuities and immediate annuities, and there's a lot of different types and sizes. And like anything, there's good products, medium products, and best products. And the insurance and annuities is no different than that. So I think it's important, first of all, to make sure you're clarifying exactly what type of annuity that you're talking about when you hear the criticism. So some criticisms are that you can lose money in the annuity. That's really true for variable annuities, but not for fixed or fixed index annuities.
It's a guaranteed payment if it's fixed. Or
correct,
I assume
yeah.
And that's the way to go, you would say?
So I focus on fixed index annuities, which is similar to what you were talking about a moment ago there, Joe. So with a fixed index annuity, it's a fixed annuity. In other words, there's a guaranteed sort of floor. And then you can select indexes and you earn additional crediting to that annuity contract based on the performance of those indices.
So like it could be a Standard & Poor's as an index, or are they?
Correct.
Okay, so people kind of choose what sort of a basket of stocks in the form of an index that they think will go up over time, for example, and tie it to that index.
But the important distinction there is in a variable annuity, your money is physically invested in those sub-accounts. In a fixed index annuity, you have no money exposed to the market. You're getting interest crediting based on the performance of that index, but you have no cash in that index.
Okay. Yeah. That's kind of like an inflation adjustment, where inflation really is where they look at an index and they say it went up 10%, so we're going to give you 10%. And this is where they use a stock index and say if it goes up or down. But there's a floor if it goes down.
Correct. You don't participate in the downside. You only participate in the upside.
Yeah.
Okay.
The inflation analogy is a little rough. It's not a good analogy. But anyway, I see what you're saying. So whenever people are investing in annuities, are there also ways to minimize their expenses associated with annuities?
So that's another common criticism, are the expenses or the fees. And they're really the fees are built in to the illustrations and you know the information that they give you on the front end. So the thing to do is compare what those fees are to what else you might do. I do a comparison all the time for clients where if you had a standard investment account that grew at 3% a year and over 25 years at a 1% fee, that works out to be about 18% of the total account value in the 25th year, or about 35% of the growth dollars in that account over 25 years. If you take the same scenario in an annuity contract over 25 years and you amortize the fees out, it comes out to around 3.5% of the total account value over 25 years. So a lot of this is what you're comparing it to over what time frame. If you compare first year to first year, well, then you could say that the annuity has high fees. But if you compare it over a span of time, because in the investment account, the fees are cumulative, right? That 1% builds year over year over year over year. And it comes into play too, that even if the account goes down, you still pay the 1%. On the annuity side, as that account is building, the fees are staying fixed. So it's becoming less and less and less of a percentage of the overall result. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the longer you hold it and the higher the amount, then the annual average fees would be less.
Correct.
Over time.
Yep.
So it's probably,
exactly.
Yeah. And is it also a little more front-end loaded to where you pay those over time or you recover it over time?
Yes, that's pretty normal for insurance products of all types. They're sort of front-loaded on the cost side.
Yeah. So do you work with a particular set of annuities and life insurance, or do you broker different products?
So I'm independent, so I can contract with lots of different insurance companies. So no, I don't focus on one in particular. I work with a basket of them.
So now, what areas though do you practice in? Is it mainly in the state of Washington?
No, I'm licensed in just about all the Western states. That's the other unique thing I did long before COVID is I've run the practice virtually since about 2015.
Okay. Mm. So you can have clients in New Mexico, for
Correct.
example.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what is the barrier nationally? Just logistics?
Yeah, pretty much. There really is no barrier. I can be licensed in any state in the U.S. as far as insurance products go. It's more difficult when you get into the security side of things. The main reason I focus on the Western U.S. is it keeps the time zones straight, and it's just easier to work with clients when you're not 3 or 4 hours behind them.
Yeah. And I guess it's a little bit of a hassle to get authorized in each state, and you'd hate to do it for one particular client, I imagine.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So if I get a prospect that reaches out from a state I'm not licensed in, then I go ahead and pull a license in that state.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, we've enjoyed the discussion, John, and your path getting where you are is interesting.
It really is. Very impressive. John, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, we'll have to circle back and talk sometime down the road.
Okay, that'd be great. Love it.
Okay, this has been another episode of Life's Third Act. Till next time, take care.
You've been listening to Life's Third Act, a podcast for thriving in retirement. Sponsored by TuckerAllen, your estate and elder law advisors. Each week, we discuss topics and answer questions to help you better plan for your future. For more information, visit TuckerAllen.com. Subscribe and listen again next week for another edition of Life's Third Act. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements.